Welcome to World of Warship Blitz video, everyone, and today's video is all about the British destroyer line, which I'm very excited to see come out, although I am going to have to be completely honest and say that I am really looking forward to the French destroyer line coming out, because that's more my style. Anyway, let's find out a little bit about the British destroyer line by looking at, I've got two ships on the press account. I've got the Tier 3, whatever the Tier 3 is called, and the Tier 5, the Acasta. I think the Tier 3 is the Valkyrie. Right, so let's have a look at the Tier 5 because that'll give us the best flavour. The Tier 3 can vary quite a lot from the other ships in the line. So Tier 5, Tier 6 is where, and Tier 7 in particular, is where you start to get the flavour of the line. But let's go. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a comparison. So we're looking at Tier 5 destroyers for a comparison. Now, it is a tech tree destroyer, so I will be comparing it with other tech tree destroyers. In order to try and work out where it fits into the meta. So we have only a few tech tree destroyers, the Nicholas, the Mutski, the Acasta now, and eventually the Podvoitsky and the Janway, which is actually, well, pretty big list compared to what it was like when it started out. Anyway, without further ado, let's go do the stats. None of the ships are upgraded, or at least I hope none of them are. Let's go have a look. No, because I've got all these on my own account. I don't need them on the press account, so they haven't had any attention. So anyway, let's go look at the Acasta, right? So ship information, yes, this ship information. Survivability, let's go look at that. Okay, that's an easy number to remember, 9,800 hit points. 5% citadel protection, not that it's got a citadel from memory. 10% flooding and fire resistance. 3% damage reduction and 3% torpedo damage reduction. Let's go see whether or not we can remember some manoeuvrability stats as well. So 34.45 knots and 7 seconds to full speed. Okay, that's going to be a lot of information for me to remember. Let's see how I do. 10 degrees per second turn traverse speed, which seems pretty darn good, and a 3.6 second turn time. I can't think of anything better. So let's go start looking at the Mutski for those bottom stats. So 36 knots, a bit faster. 2 knots faster, or a knot and a half and a bit faster. 8 seconds rather than 7 seconds time to full speed. 9.2 rather than the 10.4, so 1.2 degrees per second slower in the turn, but a turn time, that rudder shift, of 2.7 rather than 3.6. So a lot more agile to get into the turn, but not quite the same power in the turn. As for hit points, this has 1,000 more hit points, and it has the same protection rate. So the Acasta looks like it might be the weakling in the line from the hit points perspective, and it hasn't got speed, so what has it got? We'll just have to have a look. The Nicholas is a fantastic ship, probably the best destroyer in the tier. Not that I know how to use it, but anyway. So it has 11,400, so that is basically 9,800 to 11,400 is 1,500 more hit points, essentially. It has the same, it has a damage reduction of 4.5 rather than 3%, which goes to show why it's such a good destroyer. 34 knots, 7.98, so slightly slower time to full speed, and slightly slower maximum speed, but not much in it. Maximum traverse speed is 8.3 rather than 10.4, so this is 2.1 degrees per second slower. And as for the turn time, 2.4 seconds a rudder shift. So the rudder shift on the Acasta is pretty slow. Right, okay then, this is probably going to blow everything out of the water as far as hit points is concerned, and it does. So it is a full 2,500 more hit points than the Acasta. That is a lot. It has the same as the Nicholas. It's got the same damage reduction as the Nicholas, which is 4.5, and it has, across the rest, it looks pretty consistent with the main destroyer runs. It is fast at 39 knots, 39.68. You can easily push that over 40 with the right sort of consumables and modifications. 9 seconds, so it's a bit slower to get to full speed, but it probably accelerates at the same rate, seeing as its full speed's a little bit higher, but I'm not going to calculate that. 8.7 second degrees per second turn, so it's better than the Nicholas, but worse than anything else, and 3.3 seconds turn time. The Podvoitsky is pretty agile, and they are all pretty agile at this tier. The Janway is, again, so this basically cements the Acasta at the bottom of the list as far as hit points is concerned. So this has the same damage reduction as the Podvoitsky and the Nicholas. It has the same sort of general hit points area, so 11,760, which is probably about 1,700, 1,800 more than the Acasta. And 1,700 or 1,800 across 10,000 is, you know, that's 10, 15%. So yeah, anyway, that's a lot. This does 36 knots rather than 34. Its time to full speed is 9, but it's still, you know, it's not that bad. Maximum traverse speed is 9.4 and the turn time is 3. So the turn is where the Acasta has that advantage. So it has good acceleration, which also actually helps you in the turn because it keeps your speed up in that turn. And that once you get that rudder across, the Acasta should be a fairly agile ship. Let us carry on. Right, so we are back at the Acasta. Let's go have a look at the next set, which is the guns. So what I'll do is I'll leave the torpedoes off the bottom because let's go compare those at the end, otherwise I'll get distracted. Right, it has 4 guns, 120mm, which is not high caliber. Okay, 6-second reload, which is slow, right? The Le Terrible at Tier 8 has a 5.5-second reload, and you're waiting a long time for those guns to reload. But let's see what it's like at this tier. It's been a while since I've played it. 7.2 kilometre range seems, well, it seems like 7.2 kilometre range. Let's compare how that goes. HE and AP damage, this is typical British shells. Nothing in it. 20 points difference between HE and AP, and you get a 3% bonus chance of setting a fire with HE. So turret traverse speed is 12 degrees per second. So it's interesting. It won't be upturning its turrets, but you know, maybe you could push it there. Right. So if it's a gunboat, it's obviously, let's go compare it with the gunboat. Okay, so this has got 5 larger caliber guns with a 6-second reload, so that's nice to know. 7.95 kilometre range rather than 7.2, so longer range. Much higher damage, so what is it, 330 and 310, if I remember correctly. This one has a 4% fire chance. The HE does way more damage than the AP of the Acasta, so 392, 426 AP damage. Turret traverse speed a bit slow at 10 degrees per second, but if you remember, this just doesn't turn at the same rate. So the Acasta is showing itself to be pretty deficient in the guns department. Okay, let's go have a look at the Janway while we're here. 5 times 1, 5 guns, as opposed to 4 guns. The same 6-second reload time, slightly longer range at 7.31. Higher damage across the board, 3% fire chance. The only thing that the Acasta has is faster turret traverse speed. Okay, so that's not looking too good from a guns perspective, which means that Nicholas is going to be all over it as well, and Weathers. It's got those 127mm American guns, 6-second reload, 7.63 kilometre range rather than 7.2 of the poor Acasta, and damage totals which are at least 40 higher, or even 60 higher, I think, with the AP, 3% fire chance, so no real advantage for the Acasta. The Mutski has 3 guns, so so there is something that's worse than the Acasta from a gunnery perspective. 7.5 second reload, which is terrible. 6.68 kilometre range, which is terrible. But it even does better damage and has a higher fire chance. It's just got less of them firing less often and not as far. So, okay then, the Acasta, it's not a gunboat. What is it? What is it? What is it? Torpedo tubes. Right, it's got 2 times 4 torpedo launchers. Now I do believe, and we can look this up, that as the special skill it has fuel smoke and it has single fire torpedoes, which I've got to admit I have played on the Gallant and I'm not a fan in a destroyer, right? I'm not a fan actually, to be fair. I actually find single fire torpedoes to be something that I don't really enjoy using that much, even on cruisers. I'd much prefer a tight spread and a wide spread. But that's just me. Right, torpedoes. So it's got 4 of them. So what we have to watch out for when we go into battle is, does it empty one launcher first, or does it fire torpedoes alternately off the different launchers, which is my experience with the Gallant. Now, if it fires torpedoes off different launchers, those launchers have to be empty in order to reload, which means essentially if you go to single fire, you are having to launch all 8 torpedoes. Otherwise, you are going to have a launcher with 1 or 2 torpedoes gone that aren't reloading. Anyway, they've got a 53-second reload, so it's got 8 of them and 2 launchers, centerline mounted from the picture. I'm pretty sure that's the way it is. 53-second reload, which at tier 5 is an awful long time. I'm pretty sure. Let's find that out. 2,900 damage, which doesn't sort of ring the bell as being particularly great, because I think 3,000 somewhere should be the magic number. It's not 7.2 kilometre range, so the gun range is exactly the same as torpedo range. We'll go and have a look at the surface detection. Well, actually, there's surface detection. So it is able to stealth fire at tier 5, which is quite a skill. Its surface detection is actually 5.7 kilometres, which is really good. And to be fair, to get ships much below that at tier 6 or above, you are putting concealment modules and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So, yeah, it's got no AA because we're just seeing the surface detection there. So we must get that out of the way, which just means that it's just going to be carrier bait. Right, okay. Torpedo range 7.2 kilometres, 61 knot speed, 15% flooding chance, which isn't that great. And of course, torpedo traverse speed is 20 degrees per second, which is pretty good. Let's go compare it with top of the line. So it's almost got the same torpedo reload as the Mutski, which just is a forever reload, although it's got 1 extra torpedo, but that widespread is pretty wide from memory. Okay, the Acasta has 2,900 damage. The Mutski does 3,808. Now, I haven't got a calculator in front of me, so does the entire broadside of the Mutski actually exceed that of the Acasta? Not sure, but the damage per torpedo is much lower, about 1,000, almost a quarter lower. The torpedo range is 8.4 kilometres, which is a bit further than 7.2, but it gives you the idea that 7.2 at tier 5 shouldn't be too bad. 66 knots rather than 61 and a 19% flooding chance rather than the 15. Let's go to the end of the line. Nicholas has 4 times 3, so it actually has 6 on each side. So you do have to turn the ship around, and that can get you really, really badly done over if the opponent knows what you're trying to do. But you can launch a total of 12 torpedoes, 42 seconds rather than 54-second reload, I think, from the Acasta. Was it 54 or 53? It's 54 from the Mutski. So 42 is pretty good. Of course, the real champion at this tier is the Kamikaze. But anyway, the Nicholas is, it's got 2,900 damage, so it's pretty much the same as the Acasta, 6 kilometre range, much lower. And if we go and have a look down at its concealment, it is able to stealth fire, but a 0.3 of a kilometre stealth firing circle is actually hardly enough to be reliable. They do 58 knots rather than 61 knots, so not as fast, and a chance of flooding at 14%. So these torpedoes are slightly weaker, shorter range, but they do reload a lot faster, and that's worth a lot. Okay. Right. We're doing a torpedoes comparison, so we'll just basically mention that Podvoisky has torpedoes, and just having a look at that range, great damage, poor range, quite a different ship. Right, the Janeway. Now these are deep water torpedoes, so these range is 6.9 rather than 7.2. Let's go have a look at its concealment. Its concealment is worse, so it hasn't got quite the same stealth firing capabilities as the Acasta. Its Acasta's with that single fire has got quite a sniper in it, but then again, it all comes down to, do they go off one launcher at a time or do they launch alternately? That is the real question. 65 knots rather than 61 knots, 18% flooding, and 3,400 damage. Not quite the same damage as the Japanese torpedoes, but these are deep water torpedoes, so they have a higher chance of flooding. Not as good as the Japanese. Higher damage, not as good as the Japanese. Faster, not as good as the Japanese, but still reload a lot faster. So, and it depends if you're a bit of a knife fighter like I am and a destroyer. The threat value of the torpedoes from the Janeway just aren't there, so that is a bit of a disadvantage. Right, so let us go back and have a look at some concealments across the range. So, so the concealment for the what's this? The Janeway is 5.76, which is 0.6, so it's virtually identical. For the Podvoisky, let's go have a look at that. The concealment is 5.88, so it's a bit worse, but not a lot worse. They're all much of a muchness. There's our friendly Acasta without its AA. The only destroyer it seems that doesn't have AA. The Mutski, although the AA is pretty pathetic. Mutski has 5.4, so it has much better concealment. 0.3, which is worth a lot. The British destroyer line. What's its superpower at tier 5? That'll be interesting. Have to play a few games in it. Surface detection is 5.76 kilometres, which is for the Nicholas, which is basically the same as the Acasta. So the Acasta has basically fairly average or slightly better, but only slightly better than average surface detection. Let's go back to the Acasta and let's have a look at the... so it gets fuel smoke, it gets 3 of them, which I'm going to be fair to say that the cooldown time is pretty good on them. But so basically it's a fuel smoke screen during 10 seconds. So 10 seconds isn't long, it's not even long enough for your gun bloom to disappear, so it's going to require a bit of tactical capability. It has single fire torpedoes. Let's go have a look at the only other tier 5 ship that I understand would have a smoke screen is the Janway. No, it doesn't. So it is the only tier 5 tech tree destroyer with a smoke screen. So that's its superpower, okay? But there are plenty of premiums like the Hill, which is not really available, I suppose, that has, well, that's the only one that does have a smoke screen as well. So, right, so it's the only tier 5 with a smoke screen. That's nice to see. Okay, let's go have a look at the armory. Okay, we've got an option here. Main battery traverse speed +7, maximum speed +3, and large caliber AA damage +5. Well, there's no point in getting that. Ship hit points +2, maximum speed +3, or torpedo traverse speed +7. So the main battery traverse speed's pretty good. You get the speed either way. You get the speed. You get the hit points with this one versus large caliber A damage, which you have no large caliber AA. So essentially, you get 2 benefits. You get 3 benefits. There we go. Decision is made. We'll do a little bit of... oh dear. Oh, that's the Janway. Right. So I've been comparing it with a fully upgraded Janway, of course. So, yes. Right. Okay then. So we'll do some upgrading. So I've gone and selected an elite ship bonus to Janway. That doesn't make any sense, potentially. Right, let's go have a look at the choice. Right, we'll take it all back. Ship hit points +3, maximum speed +3, torpedo traverse speed +7, or torpedo reload time -3%, which at 53 seconds, it was a second and a half off the reload speed, let's say. So that takes it down from, 53 down to 51.5, which is a bit of a bonus. Across the course of the match, does that make a difference? It will in certain circumstances. However, the ship is a bit slow and the ship is a bit weak. And let's try this. That would be my choice, which is hit point speed. And the torpedo tube traverse speed is just, well, it's just a nice little bonus. Right. Okay, let's suit this thing up. Just because it's the first game, let's give it some... we have to give it a command. Do we give it a commander? We have a lot of commanders standing by. Commander skills, he is... yep. Okay, then we'll assign him. Which means that he's got 2 sets of commander skills, which is... I generally go for the emergency response because sometimes that's just quite useful. We don't really have much to choose between the two. Let's give ourselves a bit of early detection time of enemy torpedoes. Not that I hope that we're knife fighting that much. Supplies, definitely go for the high grade coal. Definitely go for the improved fuel rations. And it's a toss up between refined diesel and preventative maintenance pack. Ship points +3, ship speed +3. I generally go there. Let's hope I don't regret it. Okay, right, equipment. Its traverse speed is pretty good. It's actually, it's equipment. Let's go here. So we've got acceleration, we've got speed, we've got turning. So I'm going to put the turning in there. I'm going to put the acceleration in there. I may not need that turning, of course. Let's see what that does to the traverse. Of course, this tier you can keep buying and changing and swapping. Maneuverability, turn time 10.4 rather than 10.2, 3.13. That really brings it down. That's quite a nice touch. And that acceleration, what effect did that have? Should have looked in the same place. Time to full speed goes from 7 to 6 seconds, basically. That's pretty nice, 35.49 knots. Right, which means that I'm going to just get this for the torpedo and the main gun traverse speed, because the main gun traverse speed is pretty good. And there's not really a lot else there that I mean, we could take some of those reloads, but we just need to see how often these Mitchells get damaged. We'll get ourselves a camo, even if it's just a basic camo, because that'll bring the concealment down as good as it can get for without spending gold, which is 5.53, which is still not as good as the Mutski, but still that's not too bad. Right, okay then, so let us take it out for a spin and see how we do. So the things that we're going to be watching for, that was mercifully short wait time, is with the gun, with the torpedoes, if I fire them single fire, are they coming off one rack at a time, or are they coming off two racks, both racks? Now I can't remember from the Emerald how it goes, but generally with the Emerald, when you're firing torpedoes, you're ditching a lot. Okay. And the battle is starting. Okay, right. Okay, so how's that? That turn's pretty good. We're already at full speed. Got a Mutski there, so not going to be gun dueling on this side of the map. Where's our... we've got a Furtaka. Who's telling me to catch? Oh, that's the Butski. Yeah, but we ain't going to be holding the area, eh? That's for certain. Okay. So I've gone for... now I'm going to try and sneak around this. Oh, we've got a bad guy in A. Oh, some nasties. Okay. Okay, right. We just spammed them for torpedoes. Okay, we'll slow down, let those pass. It's absolute random, which is a bit of a shame because now I have no torpedo tubes left, so we can go through the B. That Omaha is out of sight. I'm not detected, but I will be once I get in the cap. But I have a trick. Okay, oops. Was that aimed at me? Well, the next one will be. How long have we got before we reload? Oops, let's just keep that movement up. Okay. It did seem to fire reliably off the one rack that time. This guy's obviously going to move. If he's not, then he's in for a world of hurt, because that's a very tight pattern we've given him there. He's going to really, that's quite a lot of pain. Now we've got, they've given us, there's one extra destroyer that I'm not accounting for. That's this Fubuki, which I can definitely gun duel. So I'm going to slow down, and we're going to give him heaps. He's going to fire his torpedoes out the other side. Okay. Has he fired all his torpedoes? Okay, he's gone. There's the Kamikaze, which is... I'm probably as good at dealing with the Kamikaze as anything. What have we got there? We've got a battleship. I think that Kamikaze has enough friends. Okay, not a great score, but then again, we're waiting a long time for these torpedoes to reload, so we're going to head out, try and get within range. Come on, there's my bloom. Right, so I have a nice stealth torping capability here, and we're going to... right, so let's just see how this goes. So 1, 2, they come off the same rack. Oh, okay, then split racks. Okay. Well, that's quite an interesting pattern of torpedoes. That's probably going to cause them quite a lot of grief. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that'll do the trick. Okay, so, yeah, so the things that it's capable of doing is it's quite good stealth, it's quite manoeuvrable and nifty. That fuel smoke, that suddenly on smoke is quite good, although just be aware to use it. You have to work out the timing, very, very careful with the timing, because your gun bloom is still large when you pop out the other end. It takes longer for your gun bloom to disappear than it does for the smoke to, than it does for the smoke blasts. So just be aware of that. It does fire off the racks randomly, which I'm going to put down as quite a significant concern, because what it means, you're going to be spending a lot of time with torpedo management, something you don't really have to do at a micro level. You have to do it at a macro level, like with the Fubuki, you generally try and fire 2 spreads and keep 1 in reserve, so you're always a little bit dangerous, but with the Acasta, the level of torpedo management is a lot higher than that. Fairly good damage there. Obviously the Trento comes at the top because the Trento is just really awesome. All of that was basically through torpedoes, because the guns, well, we did 4,000 for guns and 33,000 with the torpedoes. So it is a torpedo ship. It'll be interesting to see what the Tier 6, whatever that is called again, I can't remember. Whatever the Tier 6 is, will be good to see how that goes. 2 ships destroyed. It's good at capturing caps, but without a speed boost, it's if you have to get out of trouble, your options are fairly limited. Although it is nice to have that smoke at Tier 5, and it's probably going to be a bit like the Emerald. Maybe, and just maybe, this ship is the weak one of the line, like the Emerald. It could be, but let's hope, because I think although there's some good stuff in there, it's not better than any other destroyer. So it's certainly not a gunboat. It's not the same torpedo boat as the Mutsuki. Yeah, it's got quite a lot of good things associated with it, and let's see how it does out in battle. When other people who are probably more conscientious and don't rush ahead like me get to play it. Anyway, there you go. That is a review of the Acasta stats and a battle, and some rather badly formed opinions, probably. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching that. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.